Welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick and Pay, and welcome to what is hopefully, by this stage, the final week of our lockdown. I'm filming this just before the lockdown begins, so by the time we get to the stage of you actually watching this, it could be that we're all good and clear and raring to go, or it could be that the lockdown is extended and we are still battling to get rid of this beastly virus. Either way, I thought by the time I get to this particular week, I'm either going to want to celebrate because it is time to cast off the shackles and go skipping through the streets and resume a semblance of life as normal, or I am subjected to more weeks of brushing up on my now intimate knowledge of Paw Patrol and Blaze and the Monster Machines with my 3 and 5-year-old, and schooling them from home and finding new ways to impress my wife with my limited cooking repertoire. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to go through my cellar. The last couple of weeks we've brought out some wine that's been really good value, really good quality, so you're off to the supermarket and you're able to get something that hopefully satisfies you both in terms of the wine you like to drink and the price that you are able or prepared to pay for it. This week I've thrown all that out the window and I've got 4 bottles from my cellar that are certainly considerably higher up the price scale, but a bottle that I felt I wanted to drink. And that takes its cue, amongst other things, from a column online a few weeks ago by Emile Joubert, the wonderful wine connoisseur, raconteur, man about town, who writes beautifully and has an enormous amount of fun with wine and with his writing. And when they come together, he is a delight to read. And he put together your guide for 5 things to do during the lockdown that are wine related. And the one that really struck a chord was to drink some of your really good wine and decide to open those bottles that you were keeping for that special occasion. Maybe you got something really great for your 21st. Maybe you've got a bottle of 1966 GS hidden away somewhere. I'm not sure if any still exist, but if they do, maybe you have one of them. Maybe there's the bottle that you had made specially for your wedding, for instance. A couple of bottles that you thought, I'm going to open at some point. Well, why not open them now? We're ideally coming to the end of some very special time together with family, if you are at home with your family, or if you're on your own, a time of not doing a lot, which in our mad world doesn't happen very often. So it's as good as any time, I think, to open a few rather special bottles. And I'll start with one that I have not tasted, and there's a very good chance you will not ever get a chance to taste, because they only made 1,374 bottles of this particular wine. The Sieraad, if you know your Afrikaans, an adornment or a decoration, something along those lines, but I suspect there's a lot more substance to it. There's a little bit of poetry to it as well. If you have a look at the back, the Sieraad sees without seeing, he refuses to take no for an answer and endlessly pursues the unknown, and on from there. Those are the words that have come from the winemaker, I suspect, who's a guy called Ralph Baumgarten. And I've been really excited about drinking this. You might remember a few weeks ago we had some Stonewall wine, I mentioned that. Now, Stonewall provide the grapes for the Cabernet Sauvignon that Sieraad produce, but this particular Sieraad comes from just down the road in Somerset West, about a kilometre away from Ken Forrester, to give you your bearings, next to Somerset College Friedenhof Farm. And from that, they've made this wine, they've open fermented it in concrete, and they've produced something that is very, very limited edition indeed. And Ralph Baumgarten is the son of Gary Baumgarten, who's the man who oversees the wine operations at Anthonij Rupert Wyne. So he has got a rich seam of winemaking acumen running through his veins. And it was Gary who sent me these bottles, so if he sent them to me and it's his son making the wine, my expectations are high. It doesn't matter how many times you see it, there's something about that rich, dark claret colour of a red wine that is reassuring and appealing in equal measure. So this is a 2016, so it's had a little bit of time. Only arrived a few weeks ago, so it's been given time to age both in barrel and in bottle. 1,374 bottles, 1,373 excluding this one. How many more Ralph Baumgarten can I get my hands on? Because that is exquisite. It is soft and silky, exquisitely made. Almost torn silk, if you will, because it's got that lovely little edge that Sieraad or Shiraz will have. It's generally written off as spice across the board, but it's certainly more particular than that depending on which bottle you're in. Almost like a sort of very light coriander or similar. It's just got that beautiful little hint of green spice to it. Perfectly soft. Oh, Ralph Baumgarten clearly following firmly in his father's footsteps. I'd be careful there, Gary. The heir to your throne is closing in on that throne rather quickly indeed. Now, Glenelly's estate I've only been visiting for the last few years, but every time I get down to Stellenbosch, if I have the opportunity, I do get out there. And not just for the wine, the location. It's got a splendid view out over Stellenbosch, a two-storey area with a beautiful little restaurant downstairs, and up top the tasting area and a deck. It's a great place to sit back and enjoy. In particular, some outstanding red wine. And this one here, the Glenelly Lady May, the red blend, 96 points Tim Atkin gave this particular wine, a man who knows South African wine better than most. In fact, I think it was his red blend of the year, and it is a wine that is not just fabulous in itself, but also has a fabulous story. Now, the Lady May in question is May de Lanquesson, who, at the age of 78, purchased the estate in 2003, having come down to the Cape, fallen in love with Stellenbosch, and decided that it was somewhere she wanted to extend her and her family's winemaking history into. She grew up in Bordeaux. One of her relatives had been a wine broker from the 1700s, so there was a lot of French wine history that she wanted to transplant to South Africa. And in fact, at the time of buying what is now Glenelly, she was the owner of the famous French chateau, Chateau Pichon, Longueville, Comtesse de la Lande, which is a bit of a mouthful, and so she wanted to take that Bordeaux heritage and history and skill and knowledge and understanding and bring it into South Africa and combine two wonderful parts of the winemaking world. Glenelly is in great Cabernet Sauvignon land. It was part of the original Ida's farm from the first Huguenots hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And so there's been wine made in this part of the world for a very long time. It's just up from Rustenburg, to give you an idea of where in Stellenbosch you would find it. And in particular, Lady May wanted to make a Cabernet Sauvignon blend that paid tribute to her Bordeaux roots, but also made the best of Stellenbosch. And so when I was down at Glenelly a few weeks ago now, just before the Absa Cape Epic was cancelled and my annual Epic wine route came to a shuddering halt, I dropped in and invested in a couple of cases of both the Estate Reserve Cabernet Sauvignon, which is also a 5-star platter wine, and this Lady May that Tim Atkin just about baths in. He reckons it is that good, and it only takes one mouthful to confirm that, and a second one to ensure that I keep this bottle to myself as much as I can. It's not inexpensive wine, it's not much shy of 600 rand a bottle, so it's certainly not wine you're going to be drinking every day, but it is wine to reserve for a very special occasion, like hopefully breaking free from lockdown and not having to watch the Disney Channel for the foreseeable future. There's about 3/4 Cabernet Sauvignon, you've got a bit of Merlot in there, a bit of Cabernet Franc and a little splash of Petit Verdot. So the makeup of the wine very much Bordeaux, but it is the final result that is a Stellenbosch triumph and celebrates exactly how good that part of the world is for making red blends. This is 6 years old, drinking really nicely, but it's definitely got time for another 5, 10, 15 years to see where it goes, and I think that would put the biggest smile on the face of Lady May. So, le vin magnifique de Glenelly, merci bien, Madame May. It was a delight. What could I possibly open that could compete with the wine that had Tim Atkin making it his red blend of the year? Well, how about what was probably my 2019 red wine of the year? And I mentioned this a couple of times. Da-da! The Cabernet Franc from Anthonij Rupert. I made a really, really critical error over Christmas in that I had a case of this and I opened one bottle on Christmas Day. 5 bottles later, and a very excited broader Nickel Kouvelakis family, Kouvelakis being my Greek wife, had demolished the 5 of them with enormous delight, because this is magnificent. It is just a splendid bottle of the grape that I am enjoying more than any other in South Africa at the moment. We have realised just how good we are when it comes to making a Cabernet Franc that throws off the perception of it being a little jammy and a little overly extracted, and a little it just doesn't really sit nicely. That has been a Cabernet Franc reputation in the past, but the top end Cabernet Franc we're making now is not just adding a really crucial component, so many blends, but on its own, in its own right, is staggeringly good, and this is the best one I had in 2019. I had some recently. It's very, very difficult to get hold of because they don't make a huge amount of it. 24 barrels in total, and it's guarded quite jealously. You can find some at Marble, where I drank some over lunch at the 7 Colour Sundays that Greg Malocca is DJing at, that David Higgs is hosting at Marble. Hopefully those restart soon, along with the rest of the world. But the other reason for drinking this is just to say a quick thank you. So this falls under the Anthonij Rupert range, the Rupert Wyne, and that is one of Johan Rupert's businesses. And as you will have seen, when President Ramaphosa announced the lockdown, a lot of people came in to support what is going to be a really tough time for South Africa, but leading that charge was Johan. And I'm lucky that Johan has become a close friend of mine. He is as extraordinarily passionate a person as I know, but particularly the most passionate South African I have ever encountered, particularly through sport. And I don't think there's anybody who's got a more encyclopedic knowledge of sport than Johan, but just South Africa as a whole. He truly, truly loves this country, despite the fact that he's a man who cops an awful lot of flack by people who see him as a nice soft target and climb onto social media to lay into somebody who does more good than I think anybody will ever realise. The amount that he and his wife Glenelly put into charity around South Africa, and together with their children, Caroline, who's just had her birthday, happy birthday Caroline, and Glenelly and Anton, as a family, they are extraordinarily supportive of South Africa, and the R1 billion that they put in, which was matched by the Oppenheimers, was just an extraordinary gesture. And it's easy to say, well, it's something that they can afford. It's not something they had to do, but it shows just how much they want to support and put back into and help South Africa to get back on its feet after what is going to be a really, really difficult time for everybody in South Africa. So as much as I'm drinking this wine because I love it, it is also a chance to say to Johan and to Glenelly, thank you for everything you have done, you wonderful people, and I hope you're also enjoying some really good bottles of wine at this time. Now, I know Johan is a big fan of his Optima, as am I, and it's a wine I drink happily and frequently. But I honestly think at the moment, if I was reduced to just drinking one red wine for the foreseeable future, it would be hard to beat this. As much as I love Hemelanada Pinot Noir, as much as I love big Stellenbosch red blends, and as obsessed as I am with Chenin Blanc, Mr. Ken Forrester, that would be you. There's just something magnificent about this. It's just the combination. It's the perfume of the wine that you pick up instantly, which is just glorious, and then into such a soft, rich, voluptuous red wine that ticks every possible red wine box you can hope to. Now, there are some people for whom Cabernet Franc isn't exactly their glass of wine, so to speak, and that's absolutely fine. But for me, this is just superb. It's also my last bottle of it, so I'm not sharing it with anybody. Mrs. Nickel, if you're watching this, sorry darling, this one is all mine. So, glorious. So, cheers Johan. And that wraps up the red wine for today, but it doesn't wrap up the wine in total, because I do have one extra bottle of wine, and it's normally one that would have preceded the three, because it is a bottle of Cup Classique. Champagne as the French know it, Cup Classique as we have improved it. And this comes from some good friends of mine at Black Elephant. You've seen a little bit of wine of theirs either on the live show, the live tasting that I'm doing on Facebook Live a couple of times a week, 5 o'clock every Tuesday and Thursday. You've also seen their cans, which are doing really well. New form of wine that is taking off around South Africa, as it has for the last couple of years in America. This is their Cup Classique, and this, for me, defines the Black Elephant team. And they do some lovely wine across the board, but they've got a real feel for making quality South African Cup Classique. It is Raymond Ndlovu, it is Jacques Vensel, it's Kevin Swart, and the three of them together with their passion for wine and Jacques' know-how in producing such splendid wine make for a really, really good team. And this arrived a few weeks ago. It is their Zero Dosage. I love the label. It's just a really cool classic feel to that stripe across the way they've done it. Zero Dosage, if you're wondering what Zero Dosage is it alcohol free? No, thank heavens. What it means is that there is nothing added. So traditionally when you make a champagne or you make a Cup Classique, you'll add maybe a little bit of sweet wine, in some cases in France a little bit of cognac right at the end of the process, and that can determine the relative sweetness. Even on a brut style, a dry style of champagne or Cup Classique, just gives it a little bit of sweetness. What this means, with nothing added, this is going to be drier than Cape Town was this time last year. This is Karoo in the middle of a hot summer. This is dry, dry, dry. It can mean that it's a little bit tart sometimes. It's certainly not for the person who prefers their wine semi-sweet or with a little bit more body to it. This is going to be as bone dry as wine comes, and I'll be able to give you my exact thoughts on it in just a moment. But before I do that, I need to open it, and to open it, I need to go outside. So a few days ago, this package arrived from DHL, and specifically from my good friend Megan, who is the global head of wine, fine dining and other cool stuff at DHL. And initially I thought, fabulous, she sent me the world's largest Toblerone. But then I remembered what she was supposed to send me, and I got quite excited, because this is what it is. So this is a sword, as you can see, and this was a very, very generous gift. So the man who got me to start Dan Really Likes Wine was Michael Jordan, the banker turned serial entrepreneur and investor and barefoot winemaker, and it is his significantly younger wife Rose, the former lingerie model who now runs most of Michael's businesses, who got hold of me and said she'd been cleaning out a house, would I like this particular sword? And it's useful for a couple of reasons. I can fend off zombies as the apocalypse comes upon us in the times of lockdown, but far more importantly, I can use it to open bottles of bubbles, and that is exactly what I'm going to do. And voila, one opened bottle of Cup Classique from Black Elephant Vintners. Rose Jordan, thank you. Now time to head back to the cellar and see what it tastes like. So there we go, the art of sabrage with the vintage sword. Thanks again, Rose Jordan, a really cool addition to the Dan Really Likes Wine cellar. As you can see, it's sheared off perfectly, and how's that for a lovely little touch? Bottom of the cork, cheers from the guys at Black Elephant. So this is the Zero Dosage, which has been opened in a rather unique manner. And you don't have to worry about glass splinters in the bottle, it really is that clean a cut. Now you'll notice there is not a champagne flute. Champagne flutes are great in terms of the aesthetic, and they're also great if you're trying to split not that much between a lot of people, because you don't have to get in quite so much volume. But if you really want to appreciate the breadth of a Cup Classique, and in particular taking that lovely nose, then a more open glass for me just makes so much more sense. And of course, you can get more into it. Whew. That is properly dry and properly good. I think I've used this analogy before, talking about the little bakery outside Grand Bay in Mauritius, where with my mate Mark on holidays, he's Mauritian, we'd stop off there in the small hours of the morning, get our taxi to divert quickly, and the smell of that fresh bakery early in the morning brings back such good memories of island holidays, but was also full of the aromas that I so often get from some of the best Cap Classique. So from that very, very dry toast, that fresh early morning dough in the oven, through to, kind of makes me think of Albarino, say the Newton-Johnson Albarino, not in terms of the flavour of the wine, but just the dryness. That Stili Albarino is so dry, and this as well, just as crisp as it gets. And if that's how you like your Cap Classique, then a zero dosage, which is not regular, you don't get an awful lot of it. Black Elephant do have it, and it is a terrific part of what's a really, really nice selection of wine there. Cans, I think, are going to have a big impact for them. They're canned wine. Tried some of their Pinot Noir on the live show a few weeks ago. We're doing a live tasting at 5 o'clock every Tuesday and Thursday on Facebook Live, and it was more than decent. And their Rosé, I think it's their Sauvignon Chenin, they've got a white as well. I think those will do well for them, and they make some really good wine across the board, but it's this that is very much the pinnacle of what they make. 100% Chardonnay, dry as a bone, nothing added to it. And I don't know, I just think it tastes just a little better when it's opened with a sword. So hopefully, by the time you're watching this, this is a drink of celebration. Corona has been banished, sent packing in disgrace like an Australian cricket team, and we are able to just enjoy a return to life and the rebuilding of South Africa. And there is going to be an awful lot of that. We're going to have to overcome some pretty difficult times for the rest of this year. Perhaps though we're at a stage where there is still some lockdown to be had as we still battle with this particular virus. Whatever the stage is, keep strong, try and keep your spirits up, enjoy some great wine. Over the last couple of weeks, the wine I introduced you to was more in the value category, still good wine, but wine that was a lot more affordable, and that's probably where we're going to be over the next little while as we watch our budgets extra carefully. But when you do have a special occasion, or if you're coming to the end of this particular lockdown, it's worth bringing out a special bottle or two if you do have them, and just savouring them and making the most of the moment. These are 4 great examples. That Sieraad tasting for the first time, desperately hard to get hold of, but if you can, make the most of it. That Lady Mary from Glenelly, such a wonderful story of France and South Africa coming together. The very best of Anthonij Rupert, and a celebration of everything the Rupert family are doing for South Africa at the moment. And from the team at Black Elephant, some sparkling bubbles to add, I hope, a little cheer to both this show and this particular week. Keep strong, keep healthy, see out the lockdown for however long it lasts, and hopefully I'll see you back again next week, and we're back recording as usual from the Dan Really Likes Wine cellar. Cheers.